What is up, my friends? So, depersonalization and derealization are a distraction. The symptoms are absolutely debilitating. It was the scariest thing that I've ever been through in my entire life. And I've been through some pretty crazy stuff before, but nothing compares to those symptoms. And if you try to explain that to people who haven't been through it, they'll probably just look at you with kind of a deer in the headlights look like, how in the heck could it be that uncomfortable, that terrifying? But I want to put this in perspective. Depersonalization, realization are trauma coping mechanisms. Trauma is a state of nervous system overwhelm, and they are technically there to dissociate you from if you were being eaten by a lion. They're technically death symptoms, right? Now, you're not dying, but your brain thinks that you're dying, right? So if you were being eaten by a lion, think about how dissociated and numb you would have to have the pain of being eaten by a lion mitigated. You would have to be super disconnected, right? So here's the thing. If you were being torn apart by a lion and depersonalization realization was there to get you out of your body and make you feel detached from the material world, you would be really thankful. It's like, do I want to feel, a lion tearing me apart? Or would I rather be pretty numb and dissociated, right? It's kind of like nature's last gift. If you're going to be eaten by the lions, you might as well not feel it. I'm going to go ahead and choose some DPDR in that context. But here's the thing. For the last 5 years, I've been working with depersonalization realization sufferers, which are typically complex trauma sufferers. And none of them were in any immediate physical danger with the exception of a few. Obviously, I've worked with people that actually were being like physically abused and, situations like that. But like 99% of the time, there's no immediate physical danger, but yet they're experiencing death symptoms, right? And so why is that? Well, it's because you have not been in tune with your body for a very long time. And that's not your fault. So don't you feel any shame for that. Nobody taught you these things, but you haven't been in tune with your body, which is called interoception, the experience of the embodied self. And you started to have a lot of painful experiences because life is freaking hard. It's very, very difficult. You're going to eventually get betrayed. You're going to lose loved ones. You're going to have disappointment. And maybe you had a really, really dysfunctional childhood or abusive childhood, or maybe you're like me and you went through severe bullying and, maybe your parents went through a nasty divorce like mine did whenever I was younger. And you didn't know how to deal with that because nobody taught you. You didn't know how to be embodied, to be interoceptive, and to release the buildup of the tension, the adrenaline, the emotion. And it all started to just build up like a snowball. And the nervous system is like a plate. Think of like a marble on a plate. And whenever the plate turns and the marble starts to roll off, we naturally try to get back to balance. This is called homeostasis. And because you didn't know how to get back to balance through self-regulation, which is the art of calming your body and releasing the buildup in your body, as well as benefiting from co-regulation, maybe you didn't have proper co-regulation, somebody else to calm you down. The way that you got back into balance was to become disembodied. How do you do that? You start living in your head, right? I remember even from a young age, I was always obsessed with existence. I remember I had a girlfriend in high school, and I was like, do you ever just think about how we're like these tiny little humans just floating around on this planet in the middle of the universe and the Milky Way galaxy and all this stuff? Like, isn't that kind of crazy? Do you ever just think about that? I'll never forget what she said. She said, no. She said, no, I don't think about it. And that was bizarre for me because I'm like, how could you not think about that? I was always thinking about existence. And I also was so obsessed with people's opinions of me for most of my life. I was always obsessed with what people thought of me. And then video games came along. I played EverQuest. I played World of Warcraft. I played Halo. I played all kinds of games. That was an escape. And then ended up smoking cigarettes, ended up smoking marijuana eventually, alcohol, like all kinds of things came into my life to also numb my body because that's the only way that I knew to get back into balance. because I didn't know how to get back into balance in a healthy way. And so once I had painful experience after painful experience after painful experience, and my brain started to create all kinds of sensory triggers that were triggering fight or flight response in the body, eventually, which happened to be a bad marijuana experience in 2008, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was the moment where I hit a point of overwhelm. You could think about it like a cup of water, right? It started to fill up. And then once I felt trapped after smoking way too much marijuana, bam, I hit an overwhelm point. And the way that our nervous system works is we first will try to find regulation in our nervous system through social engagement. So whenever I was at my friend's house, I basically was like trying to get them to calm me down. And whenever they didn't calm me down, I then tried to fight or flee. I ran outside. I was pacing back and forth. I was really trying to fight my own body because my heart was pounding. And I started to scream, call an ambulance, call an ambulance. And whenever that didn't work, there's only one procedure left after social engagement doesn't work to calm us down, fight or flight response doesn't work, and that's the most ancient reptilian response, which is the freeze response. And part of that response is something called depersonalization and derealization. You start to feel detached from your body. You start to feel detached from the material world. These are trauma coping mechanisms to help mitigate the pain of what your brain thinks is being eaten by a lion. Think about it. If you're fighting or fleeing from a lion, and all of a sudden you get extremely overwhelmed, that overwhelm point means you're about to get eaten. And so as a defense mechanism to help you out, your nervous system starts to deploy these extremely bizarre and terrifying symptoms. It's technically the dorsal vagal branch of the parasympathetic nervous system. And once you start to feel these symptoms, it's extremely, extremely debilitating. The symptoms themselves are traumatized. It's like, people get traumatized by the trauma coping mechanisms of depersonalization realization. That's what happened with me. I was already overwhelmed, but once DPDR kicked in, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking losing my mind. I feel like I'm out of my body. I feel like everything's fake and a dream. And then that just created this kind of spiral. And here's the thing. Because I didn't know what the symptoms were or why they were there, I assumed that they were the issue. And I also started to have all these irrational fears that I was losing my mind, I was going crazy, and all of those things. And so I made a full-time job out of trying to directly get rid of those symptoms. But it was all nothing but a distraction from the real problem, which is that I needed to befriend my body. I needed to check back into my body because I had been checked out for a very long time. And I needed to make my body my safe place again. I needed to go through the process of releasing all the buildup of tension, adrenaline, emotion that had built up for a very long time. I needed to make some lifestyle adjustments as well to mitigate stress and fatigue. And once I started to do those things, all of a sudden the symptoms indirectly went away. See, that's the thing, is if you're trying to get those symptoms to go away, it's literally like picking an apple off an apple tree. You may get a temporary break, but if you haven't dealt with the roots, the apples are going to keep growing back. And I talk with people all the time that I work with, and they got the symptoms to go away for a while by doing just maybe an acceptance technique or a distraction technique. And they were just so excited that the symptoms went away. They're like, I'm cured. Everything's great. But then they just live a lifestyle that drives their body into the ground. They don't listen to their body. They're not self-regulating. They're not working from a place of rest. And they end up being extremely disembodied, living in their head all the time. And the buildup starts to happen. And sometimes it takes a few years even. But then all of a sudden they come face to face with their body. And it's messy at first. And that's really what I help people do, is I help them clean up their body. I always say, to my clients, your body is like a hoarder's house right now, right? If you've ever seen that show Hoarders on TLC, and we are taking a cleaning crew, which represents, self-regulation, and we're going to clean it up, but it's going to take a lot of time even to get you back into your body, let alone start to even self-regulate. And you're going to need a lot of co-regulation support through the process because it's very up and down. You're going to need to make some decisions in your life. Sometimes you got to disconnect from people. Sometimes you have to reduce your hours at work. Sometimes you have to upset people because you have boundaries, because you're no longer a people pleaser anymore. But what I tell people is, what kind of life do you want to live? Because not everybody's willing to pay the price. I accepted that a number of years ago. I just wanted to believe that because I was willing to pay the price, that everybody was. I literally believe in the 80-20 rule. I think it's actually more like the 90-10 rule. 80% of people are not willing to pay that price. And that breaks my heart, because I have to see people suffer that I know that they could recover if they would really put in the time and the effort, but they're just not willing to do it. And there's all kinds of reasons as to why that is. But I will tell you, if you are willing to be that 20% and you are willing to take the focus off of the symptoms that are actually biologically correct for the state that you're in and focus on the real problem, which is your body and your life, you will be amazed at what can happen. I just did a interview with this girl going through our RISE program, and I'm going to post it on YouTube. But she went to like the best psychiatrist at Stanford Hospital, and just literally was just terrified about her symptoms. She even bought a house in a different country. She was like, maybe if I go to Venezuela, she lives in California, it'll be more calmer there. And she tried this thing and that thing and that thing, and just nothing was working. And she went to the best of the best people out there. And then she came into my program, and I started to give her co-regulation. That instantly started to help her. But then she was very skeptical about the body-based stuff until finally she gave it a shot. And now she's working again. I think she works at it's either like a medical clinic or a hospital or whatever, but she's back to work. She actually turned that house that she bought in Venezuela into an Airbnb, and she can think again, she can function again, and she is on her way to full recovery. And so anyway, I'm just telling you, this stuff is amazing if you'll actually do it. But as long as you're in a one-on-one war with the symptoms that have never been the problem, never will be the problem, you're literally just distracted away from the root problem, and it's just wasting your life. So I would implore you, please do not do that. I have created the 5 shifts to heal from trauma, anxiety, panic attacks, and depersonalization realization. It will give you the 5 shifts that you need to make to heal from these symptoms. There is a link below. Check it out. It's a free masterclass. I put 6 months into it. I worked like 13 hours a day on it. It's going to add an incredible amount of value to you. And also at the end, there is an invitation to work with me and my team. You can apply for it to see if we can help you. I hope that this video has encouraged you. Click like if it did, share it as well, and you guys have an amazing day, and we'll talk to you soon. And also, if you're one of the millions of people that are sick right now, I'm so sorry about that. My family's been hit with sickness. I've got like probably half my clients are going through sickness. It is insane right now. I don't even, nobody seems to even know what it is, whether it's the flu or COVID. Anyway, I pray that you have a speedy recovery. If you are sick, just rest a lot. Don't overdo it. And I will talk to you guys very soon.